We come from God. As our Holy Father, Pope Benedict, reminds us, we aren't a clump of cells. We are human. We have the image and likeness of God. And imprinted in us is that presence of God in originality, that unlike any other human creature, the human person has intelligence, has free will. When you think about our lives, we are able to go ahead and contemplate, unlike any other creature, contemplate our future. You and I, unlike dogs or other creatures, we can actually think about what we want to be and where we're going to go in 10 years, or even in 6 months, or who we want to become in even a shorter time. We are the only creatures who can think not only about our future, but about our mortality. In some ways, and the most beautiful expression from the Vatican Council is from the moment of conception, we are invited to converse with God. Isn't that beautiful? From the moment of our conception, we are called into conversation with God. Now, you know, some would say, well, life really begins at birth. No, it doesn't. It begins at conception. And that originality, that human being who has now been given all the DNA, has been given an immortal soul that allows that human being not only to develop, but to contemplate their mission, who they are in this world, and to contemplate their own mortality, the realization that this world opens to God. And do we on this journey help each other to find that? You know, the world and that current that so surrounds us wears us down and wants us to believe also in relativism, that one thing is good as another. You ever heard that? Well, that's your view. As long as it doesn't impact me, that's okay. The world wants us to believe there are not absolute truths. That prison of relativism that our Holy Father speaks about. Those of us in the pro-life movement know that life comes from God and must be treated with care and with dignity. In some ways, you know, as human beings, as we experience the openness to God, not only do we converse with God, but God calls us forward into union with Him. Maybe some of you remember when Pope John Paul II was elected to the papacy, when he was being cheered there in the arms of St. Peter's Square. Do you remember as he's holding his crozier, and that crozier had the crucified Christ on it? If you remember when they're cheering him, he's showing them the cross. He doesn't want the cheering for himself. He wants it for Christ, who reveals man to man. In other words, you want to know what human life is about? See Jesus Christ. If you want to understand what it means to be fully human, then see Jesus Christ, who not only is fully divine, but he's fully human. He is all that we one day hope to be divinized and one day hope to share with God. But that journey begins in the womb of a mother. That powerful journey. And you think sometimes, those of you who are married and have children, you see your sons and daughters go off to college. You say, my goodness, look how they're growing. All that potential was within the womb of the mother. All of that was always there, and God has been calling in conversation so that that person will respond and will go ahead and unite their life to Jesus Christ. Now, in the pro-life movement, you know, it's quite a challenge not to get caught up and not to be in a current that can take us away and make us think that there are not absolute truths or that it doesn't make a difference. Unless you and I stand up, the world will go on. The envelope will get pushed, and we'll become less and less sensitized to what is happening in our society. A couple of comments I'd like to make about that. Back in 1968, Pope Paul VI issued his very prophetic encyclical, Humanae Vitae. He predicted in that particular encyclical that once we begin to separate the unitive and the procreative dimension of human sexuality, he says what's going to happen is we're going to have a loss of respect for women. We're going to have a loss of respect for human sexuality. He even reminds us it's going to lead to more sexual activity outside marriage and abortion. He certainly was right. But at the time, you talk about swimming against the tide. Pope Paul VI proclaimed a message about human life that was not ready to be accepted. For the world had said, we can separate those ends, the unitive from the procreative. Yet when that happens, you realize what occurs. Not only the foundation of human life, but the foundation of society. Man and woman who are to there accept each other mutually, to see their complementarity as man and woman, but also open to human life. When we stop valuing human life, when we see human sexuality as recreational, when we see it as a way to simply have private expression, when we are not standing up for objective truth, it does not take long for not only is human life no longer respected, but abortion becomes the way to go ahead and allow people to have human sexuality, but not to have it even in a context really of committed love or openness to new life. Marriage is the foundation of our society. It is the foundation because a man and a woman commit themselves so that that new life comes from them. That's how society is structured. That is the core and the dignity of the human person, not only of the couple, but of their fruitful life being expressed now and open to God's gift of a new human being. Human sexuality is part of God's plan, but it begins always with understanding we cooperate with God. And as the Lord has told us in the prophet Isaiah, even if a mother should forget a child, God won't forget any of us. And that gift of human life is the foundation of our society. No matter how others try and get us to be desensitized,